Alright guys, so following up from my Emond's Field video, I have who are the Emond's Field 5. That's Mat, Rand, Perrin, Nynaeve, and Aguain. I know that term's been thrown around a lot, Emond's Field 5, and people who are getting into the show might not really know like who those people are, what's going on. And I want to give sort of like a little debrief of who these characters are without spoiling the show, so more people can sort of get into it and get into the hype and all of that before the show comes out. I'm going to sort of be doing this every week, talking about characters that are going to be in the first few books, probably like Moraine, Lan. We'll get into like Elaine. We're going to get into Min. I'm going to be talking about all these people, but for now I'm going to kind of like bunch the Emond's Field 5 up first, and then I probably do like a little bit more deep dive into each of them later on, and we'll get into more spoiler discussions and stuff like that. I just more wanted to make this for the people who want to get in the show, want a like little deep brief of like who these people are. But first, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, guys. It helps me out a lot. And I want you to comment who your favorite character is. I have my top 2 favorite characters are in this list. Well, yeah, my top three favorite characters are in this list. So yeah, you guys got to stick around to watch that, and let's get into the video. So just a little brief thing. I have a whole video on what is Emond's Field, and that'll give you a little look into who these people are, why they do what they do, and stuff like that. Brief, like 1-minute thing. The Emond's Field 5 are from Emond's Field, obviously, and they're known to be sort of like farmers, sheep herders. They're very stubborn, like that sort of thing. And the first person we'll get into is Rand. So Rand takes care of sheep with his father Tam, and they have a whole farm, and he's sort of picked on by a lot of people called sheep herder and stuff like that, but he wants to be exactly like his father. He just wants to like take over the farm, stuff like that. He wants to have a very simple life. In much ways he's like Bilbo like that, and what Robert Jordan talked about was he's sort of gonna take like the ideas that Tolkien started with and just like run with them. Obviously Bilbo wasn't, this big character that Rand eventually becomes. I don't want to spoil too much, but obviously Rand is our main character out of our main cast. But yeah, I think it's really cool that you see a person who doesn't really want all this responsibility, ends up going on this huge journey and growing as a person, and all these things happen. But yeah, for Rand, he wants a calm, he wants a simple life, and ends up getting dragged into this huge thing. His father is Tam, like I mentioned before. Tam is part of the village council, and kind of spoiler, it happens in the first few chapters of the book, but Rand eventually figures out that Tam has this heron-marked sword, and he's like, where the heck would my dad get a sword from? Like, he's just a farmer, he's lived here his whole life, so there's like a secret history behind Tam. And then eventually we figure out that Tam may not be Rand's actual biological father, and this starts Rand on like questioning almost like everything. He tries to deny it at first, but a lot of his friends and stuff like that begin to change around him, and he's staying the same, and his father might not be his actual biological father, and just like his mind's just going crazy. He's trying to stay true to himself, but while the world is changing around him, he doesn't really want to change with it. So it makes him a very interesting character. Basically, growing up, it wasn't really said, but he was sort of betrothed to Aguain, who is another member of the Emond's Field 5. And at the start of the books, they're talking about Beltane, and they're both adults now, and she's braided her hair because she is of marrying age now. So our next character is Aguain, and in much ways, she is the same as Rand. Aguain is the mayor's daughter, and a big thing at the beginning of the book is that she has braided her hair, something that she has been waiting for her entire life, and braiding her hair means that she is of marrying age now. She is the same as Rand, as in up until this point, they haven't really done anything very remarkable with their lives, where the others have sort of like, picked occupations that were a little bit different, or, kind of mischievous or whatever. Rand and Aguain are pretty just like the normal sort of people, but we start figuring out throughout the books that the difference between Rand and Aguain is that Aguain does have this adventurous spirit, and she wants to know about the outside world, and she's going to start breaking tradition. She's going to like start breaking customs, when Rand has always looked to her to be like, no, like, we're in this together, and you're not like going to break these customs, and or like getting upset at her if she's like breaking customs. But Egwene's like, I'm my own woman, like I'm gonna do what I want, and I like love Aguain, and that leads me into Aguain is my favorite character of the books. In much ways, I think she is like, she has as much growth as like Rand basically in the books, because Rand has obviously a lot of growth, but Aguain always stays true to herself, and she's very smart, she's very adventurous. Yeah, she has one of the most satisfying character arcs of all of fantasy, I think, and I just love Aguain. There's obviously parts with these characters where they do get a little bit annoying. There's 15 books, so at some points it seems like they're like might be dragging and that sort of stuff, but with all of like the main characters that I really like, but they have these shining moments that really just like are amazing, and I that's why I love the series. Rand has like 5 of those moments where it's like, holy crap, this is just maybe more than 5, like 10 times where it's just like crazy and you really like love what they do. I think Aguain has like a handful of them and they are just absolutely remarkable. And that's why I really like her character. She is my favorite. Our next character on the list is Nynaeve, and same as all the other characters, they like grow so much and change. And same as with Nynaeve, but Nynaeve is a okay. I'm gonna start getting on a tangent, but let me give her background a little bit. Nynaeve is the wisdom of the town and very young for her age. Like I said before, the wisdom is the head of the women's circle. Made a whole video about Emond's Field and their culture, so you can check that out. But she is the head of the women's circle, and it's because of who she is. She's very young, which is not typical for a wisdom, but she has remarkable skill in healing and stuff like that. She is also just like, she's very stubborn, which is known for Emond's Field people, but she's even more stubborn than a Emond's Field like typical person. But she's also very determined in her ways, and she makes very good decisions. She's also very matter of fact, and that's what makes her a very good leader and what makes her a very good wisdom for her village. A lot of people still don't really like her as wisdom. Screw them, who cares? I love Nynaeve. Nynaeve is definitely up top tier list for me. And she has a remarkable growth. She has a growth almost in the same way as Matt, but she has that spark sort of moment, that snap moment, that makes her completely... Yeah, I won't get into it because it's spoilery, but Nynaeve always remains true to herself, like Matt always remains true to himself. But yeah, I love Nynaeve. She's always tugging on her braid. That's what people hate, that she's pulling on her hair, tugging on her braid. That's what Robert Jordan puts in anytime she's mentioned on screen on the page, which I would love to see in the show because it's like, it's just such a meme in the books. Time to get back on script. Time to get back on script. Her stubbornness is her greatest strength, but also her greatest downfall, and you'll know that throughout the books and stuff like that. But yeah, she's ultimately just a great character. So my next person on my list, he is my favorite character. So I have a female favorite character and a male favorite character. Any guesses who it is? Everyone's gonna think it's Matt. It's not Matt, it's Perrin. Perrin is my favorite male character. People are going to hate that. I know they are going to hate this, but just stick with me. Here's my reason being. Perrin is a very stoic sort of person. He has a lot of stubbornness, as all of them have stubbornness and terrible decision making, but really he has such stoicism, and I really love that quality within a character, and never betraying himself. He never betrays himself, and he's always trying to be stoic. He's always trying to make the right decision, well, except when maybe he spanks Fael. We can't get past that. That did happen, but it was very weird. One of the most hated moments in Wheel of Time. I hated it absolutely, but he moving on from that, he is very stoic. He's a great character to stand behind. He's always trying to stay true to himself, even to a downfall where he is just like, I'm just a blacksmith, always saying that when he is supposed to become so much more within the story. I also love his powers. Not very spoilery. This happens within the first season. Probably it was going to happen like middle of the first season, so if you don't want to hear this, you can skip to the next part. But I love his powers, that he's a wolf brother. The golden eyes, it's going to look so cool. I'm so excited for Marcus to have the golden eyes. It's going to be really cool to see on screen. It's going to be really interesting how they bring the dream world in and the wolves and stuff like that. I'm just really excited for all that sort of stuff, but I love his storyline. I love the wolves. I love the golden eyes. I love his relationship with Fael, even though at times every relationship has, that's not perfect, and when it's perfect, it's not interesting when it comes to storytelling. It's much better than a lot of the relationships that Robert Jordan writes, where it's just like kiss, kiss, smooch, smooch. We here now. Okay, we good. We love each other. They have a lot of problems, and they're very stuck in their ways, and they both don't back down. I love their relationship. And they both end up working. A lot of stuff happens, and at points where it seems like they're about to give up on each other. But they end up staying through it, and they're very powerful together. And I love their relationship, and I love Perrin. And finally on my list is Matt. Matt is a fan favorite, and there's a reason for that. People say that Matt is Robert Jordan's best written character. Like Robert Jordan put a lot of himself into Matt. So backing up a little bit, Matt is friends with Perrin and Rand, and they sort of get into trouble a little bit in the town. Matt is known to be the very mischievous sort of person. He does a lot of pranks and stuff like that. And his father is Abel Cawthon, who is a horse trader. So Matt knows a lot about horses and stuff like that. That's sort of like the main things about his like background. Matt is basically known to be a troublemaker and very mischievous and stuff like that. And even when he saves or protects people, they can't believe him. And people get mad at him, specifically the women of Emond's Field get mad at him throughout the story when he comes in and saves them or whatever. But because Matt is just known to be causing trouble. So when he saves you, they're like, what the heck? They like don't know how to react. So a lot of people complain about that in the community, that like whenever Matt saves somebody, they just like complain at him, specifically the women of Emond's Field. And most of the time when he does save them, he's very snarky. He's not very likable, but he's very funny. And that's why a lot of people like Matt. I love Matt. I really haven't had time to come up with like my top 10 favorite characters. I'm sure he fits in there. I'm gonna have to like sit down and do a tier list of like my favorite characters eventually, but right now, like an S tier, A tier, B tier. I'll come up with that eventually, but Matt's definitely up there. I love Matt. You can definitely tell he was like Robert Jordan's favorite, one of his favorites basically, and just like put a lot of himself in there. He hates Aes Sedai. He hates like the magic. He gets into a lot of trouble. And that trouble usually comes back to bite him really bad in the butt, but he's a very lovable character and a fan favorite, so gotta love Matt. Also, Matt is sort of an exception to a lot of the characters' growth when it comes to the rest of the story. I would say with like, I would say along the lines of Perrin, where Perrin has to really stay true to himself to be able to like stay sane with all the stuff that's going on. Man, I'm really trying to figure out the words, because Matt never changes. Like, Matt's just always Matt. And kind of with Perrin, Perrin's always Perrin, but Perrin always has this like inner conflict going on with him that's going on about like who he is and what he's supposed to do. Matt never really has like that. He's just like going through life and stuff happens to him. And he does follow he's always begrudgingly, as the rest of our characters in our story, following the path that they need to follow. But a lot of times it seems with Matt, he has, the dice rolling in his head. I don't know if this is really much spoilers, but he always has luck on his side, super lucky, and that causes him to get in all these crazy circumstances, but it never really causes Matt to have a bunch of change. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear from you guys of like, I'm sure there's very subtle things in Matt's behavior and stuff like that makes him change, but it always seems Matt is just Matt, and never really got rid of that even through all the trauma he went through. But yeah, you guys let me know who your favorite character is, maybe like your favorite like character moment. Be sure to put spoiler warnings down below so we don't spoil people who are just getting into the series, maybe just getting into the show or the books. But would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.